My name's Asheesh Laroia, and what I do is I work for a nonprofit called OpenHatch, which I co-founded. We make web tools and run outreach events to help people get involved in free and open source software. And we also, through what we've learned, help programming meetup groups in particular become more newcomer friendly and diverse. Open source software is sort of a way of building software by the programmers that says to anyone who receives the software, you have permission to modify, share, understand this software, and to use it for any purpose. So that's the basics of what open source is. And a lot of software nowadays is open source. Things like the Firefox web browser, the Google Chrome web browser is almost entirely open source. And there's plenty of developer tools that are shared in this way. The really exciting thing for myself and a lot of people is that open source software, by its nature and by this definition, means that it's sort of a commitment by programmers to the user that sort of, it's up to you now. I'm not in control, you are. So the user gets the permission to modify the program, and they get the social capacity, if they participate in the main community, to sort of just tell the developers what to modify. And if the main developers don't respond, they can tell other developers to modify it, or they can modify it themselves. And that's a really empowering vision. When I say it, it sounds kind of boring and technical, but fundamentally, it's about making sure that software developers don't have more power than the people they're giving the software to. But there are plenty of ways, and they range all the way from getting a piece of open source software, already being a programmer, and just modifying it to do what you want. This is actually pretty common. It's especially common among programmers, obviously, and also among system administrators. And that's by far the most technical. One of the other really, really valuable ways is to just submit a report for the kind of change you want. Maybe there's a bug in the program where it crashes at the wrong time, or maybe there's a feature you would want to add. Communicating that to the people who maintain the software is of huge value, because it means that you get the program to do what you need, and the developers feel good that there's a conversation between them and the people they're giving the software to. And actually, that was the first way that I got involved myself initially. I was using this very technical tool to repair my file system where my data was stored because my system crashed and something got corrupted. And it turns out that the program that restores the data actually crashed while analyzing my data. So that was kind of disappointing because I wanted my data back. So I emailed the email address listed in the program as to where you contact the developers, and within a few days I had a conversation that resulted in my data being back and for that recovery tool to be fixed for everyone else. So that was sort of an eye-opening moment for me, and that was probably 11 years ago now, where unlike normal software, unlike most software, I can have a conversation with the people who made it, and within a reasonably short amount of time, it'll suddenly change into what I want. That's the kind of power as a user you get from open source that's really hard to find anywhere else. And the other really great thing is, with open source, if the main developers aren't the ones who want to put that change set together, you can find someone else who'll do that too. And this was pretty cool as a high school student. And it's still pretty cool for me today. So filing bugs is one way to help out. Another really good way is to look through the existing bugs and find out which of these things have already been fixed, or maybe which need help to get a higher quality report from the person who filed it, so that when the developers of the program look at the program and the bug, they'll know exactly how to reproduce the problem. So I gave a talk earlier today about these sorts of ways to get involved in open source. The ways I've just described are still pretty technical, but just using the program and understanding how it works, explaining it to other people, and even just writing a post on your personal blog about how you're using the program helps a lot of people, because if the notion behind open source is empowerment, helping people actually get the things they want out of using the software promotes that kind of empowerment. The transition away from proprietary software towards software that people have a chance of knowing what it's doing matters a lot, especially as computers sit in the middle of our conversations between people. Like here in this room, it's pretty clear to me as a human what's going on. There's a room, we're talking. There's also a camera recording. What happens after with that is let's say, more complicated, involves computers and math and something else. But if I'm talking with you over a cell phone network, or I just have a cell phone in my pocket, or I'm using something like Skype to communicate with you, it seems like one thing is going on, but anything could be going on. The cell phone could seem to be off because I pressed the power button, but if I don't understand how cell phones work, then I might not know that it can still track my location when it's doing that. And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. But the idea of hiding the truth behind technology from the people who are using that technology strikes me as such a power grab that it's really great to see open source software moving back toward empowering users.